Welcome to P Passionate W World, R Radio N Network, LLC, a multimedia company. Ann Arbor, Michigan, Boston, Massachusetts, Liverpool, England, Melrose, Florida, Los Angeles, California, Fullerton, California, Washington, D.C., Chicago, Illinois are one of the many broadcast homes of PWRN, a multimedia company. The world in your hands. And now, without further ado, let me present to you one of our many hosts and their programs.
Welcome to the Energy Stoners Cafe. My name is Toni Quest, and I'm really happy that you're here. I like to interview the most interesting people I can find on the planet. So grab a cup of coffee, sit down, relax, and listen. You're going to find that these guests are so intriguing, you'll wonder why you didn't know about them before. Welcome back to the Energy Stoners Cafe. Today I'm interviewing an extraordinary person. His name is Peter Elvidge. Peter Elvidge is a gentleman that I met on the internet who had a story that I found intriguing. My inclination was to interview him, but as it turned out, we found that we had some things in common. I'll say that we bonded over his blindness and the fact that he's an artist without eyesight, and my blindness and color blindness in one eye. I'm not comparing the two in terms of I'd say that the amplitude of them both, but it was very interesting that we were to find each other this way. I'm going to talk to Peter about a couple of things. I'll talk to him about how we got together and how we're kind of the antithesis of each other, as Peter lives in Minneapolis, the Minneapolis area of Minnesota, and I live in the greater New York metropolitan area. And there's more to the story. Peter experienced a miracle during the time after we first met each other online. And I was one of the people, I feel I'm one of the privileged people to have experienced him and his awesomeness on both sides of this miracle. So welcome to the show, Peter. Thank you so much for coming to my show.
Yeah, hey, it's no problem. I'm happy to come on, share some more of my story, how we got together and started doing collaborations and awesome projects.
Right. We did some awesome projects. We really did. Now, Peter, feel free to tell the audience about what you and I ended up doing together.
Yeah, so originally, me and Toni met through an interview with a previous employer. And originally, after the interview, we got connected because Toni was interested because, if I remember correctly, it was you got connected to a art show. And when you found out that I was an artist, you got interested in connecting with me. After a little bit of time and, talking back and forth, I was very interested at the time of doing collaborations with different people. And I thought, what wouldn't be a fun idea to do some sort of like a show or a podcast, whatever it started to develop as at the beginning, and make it available to different people and then have some interesting interviews. And ever since then, it's grown from this little recording you'd find on maybe YouTube to iTunes, Google Play, major networks, 3 radio stations. I mean, it's grown everywhere. And we're up to our 67th episode is our next episode. So we're almost at 100, and it's been crazy.
It has been crazy. And we've interviewed some really interesting people along the way. And I remember, and I just want you to just corroborate what I'm saying, is that it initially started out as being a show with the premise of what enables the disabled, because I was intrigued by the fact that you were an artist without sight.
It really did, because we like one of our first episodes, Cane versus Canine, an interesting debate about service animals, which is better, who uses what for their particular reasons and different types of strengths and experiences. It was very interesting. And then it just kind of started branching out to other people and other areas on top of having that accessibility, disabilities, wellness, all those different things with new guests with different points of view. It just turned out to be awesome. I mean, and people are enjoying it. They share it. They had fun during the interviews, and it's been going on great.
Yes, it has been going well, and I was always and I still am very humbled by the fact that Peter, despite his disability before, he actually does all the technical details to put our show on the air and to put it out onto the World Wide Web. And I think that I feel very impressed that someone could do so much without eyesight, and he was so technically proficient. And at the end of the show, I'd always think to myself, I can't believe he even talks to me, because he was just so smart despite that. But then something actually happened. We interviewed a lot of people. We interviewed a lot of people that were involved in organizations for the disabled and the blind. We even interviewed some blind people. We've interviewed Lauren Capps, who's a blind opera singer. We've interviewed a lot of different people, and it's just been very, very fascinating. And we've sort of evolved into a whole other animal in terms of our podcasting. So tell the audience about your Perseverance Network and about how you got involved with that and where you are now with your eyesight.
Originally, everything started out 2010 to 2011. Around this time, I was starting to lose my vision for unknown reasons. It'd be very small at first, like very small changes. We wouldn't know what it is. I'd be going to doctors. I'd be going and seeing specialists. It was a whole big thing, and that's just a huge story. But as I was going through that, I was having issues because I was like, I wanted to do my art again. I wanted to be creative as I used to be with my full vision, but I didn't know how to do that because I knew that sculpting or other things were out there, that I could use my hands and things, but it didn't really hit right with me. And one day I was looking through YouTube and Google, just searching around for different ideas. And I came across pixel art. And pixel art is the idea of creating your pieces or images square by square, pixel by pixel. Basically a small version of what your regular computer or TV screen does with your pixels to create it so you can watch TV or navigate your computer. And also, if any of you remember back in the old days, Atari, all like Galaga, Warlords, all of them, complete pixel art creations in video games. Mario Brothers is probably the most iconic.
Okay, I'm familiar.
Yeah, but it branched off from being an art form to wanting to do YouTube, to spreading out to different networks, to inspiring and motivating and educating people. I had a few mentors at the time that helped me start gaining a presence and start getting collaborations done. I would start doing time lapses. My network would grow to multiple different social media networks. I started doing collaborations like I did with Toni, some small, some large, all the way up to today. It's a large network. During this time, while I was doing my art and progressively up until this last year of July, my vision continuously was getting worse. We were still trying to figure out reasons behind it. We were still trying to figure out what issues they were. And the designation was that it was glaucoma and cone and rod dystrophy at the time. And glaucoma is related to your eye pressure, having high eye pressure levels. And then cone and rod dystrophy is the degeneration of your cones and rods or your light and color receptors of your eyes. So those were our theories at the time. We never really have concretely known. We just know for 100% certainty that glaucoma has been a major portion of it. And coming up to July of this last year, it got to a point where my vision changed to such a point where it was just light perception. It was, I could see colors and lights, but I couldn't do anything without text to speech or with a white cane, anything like that. It was a total different scenario. Being that I've had previous experience with trainings, blindness, visual impairment, it was natural to me in the weirdest way to transition because I had that previous training, but it still wasn't an easy transition.
So tell the audience, Peter, about the gamble that you took with your eyes and how it turned out.
So the surgery that I opted into was related because I had high eye pressures at the time, which they believed to be connected to glaucoma. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to do a tube implant into the eye to make another pathway so that the excess fluid the aqueous humor that you would have in your eye that gives natural nutrients to your eye is able to go out of it naturally so that there's less pressure, and then it makes the eye more healthy. There's not so much pressure on any of the internal anatomy of the eye. The gamble was here, though, is that this was not a means to fix my vision. It was a means to keep what was stable and what I had. It was just totally meant to keep what I had, if possible, if not to lower my pressures so that I may, possibly would have more time. And it was a really difficult decision because, you had to decide whether you wanted to wait it out or if you wanted to take a risk. And after consideration with my family, my fiance, with everybody, we decided it was time. And we took that gamble, and I went in for surgery that day, just totally not expecting how I was going to wake up the next day. I can't remember enough the moment because this is the first moment that I've ever had where I was wheeled into an operating room, before I was put under. So I was fully aware of my surroundings, different doctors, everything like that. And then as I was being put under and I was given some of the anesthesia stuff, all I could think of was I wanted to see my fiance again. I just prayed for it. I wanted it so badly. That's all I could think of. And it just, I fell asleep. And it's weird because I woke up afterwards and it felt like, that weird feeling where it feels like it's only been 2 seconds.
Right. And it's been 8 hours or whatever.
Yeah. It's been for me, the surgery I think was an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours at the most. Mm-hmm. Everything went as normal for implementing the tube, no infection, things like that. But I woke up and I just had this whoosh, I opened up my eyes and I just had this whoosh of light. And it's oh my gosh, it's if you were to take a flashlight and someone turns it on in the middle of the darkness, you're just oh my gosh,
Right. So it was a shocker for you, right? To just be able to suddenly see.
Yeah, because after the light kind of cleared, or I had a little bit more of, I guess it felt like bearings, so to speak, on my vision at the time. I started looking around. I started being able to see detail and seeing people and seeing colors and just exploring and navigating. At the same time, I'm just oh my God, all the emotions are just going all at once.
I could imagine.
And it was just it was crazy. And we kept asking the doctor, do you have any idea? Do you know what it was? Do you know what happened? She's I have no idea. She's the best thing I can tell you is that it's a miracle because you have a little bit more custom anatomy than someone else who, has a normal set of anatomy for an eye. And she's a variety of things could possibly have happened, but we don't know. But everything looks fine. There's no infection. It worked out perfectly. And you're okay to go home, afterwards. And I was given eye drops and a shield, and I had to do things a certain way for, I think it was 3+ weeks. And after that time, it was okay, you could start, roaming around a lot more and, traveling and all sorts of different things.
So how has your life changed since that day? What has changed? What is the most, I'd say, noteworthy thing in your head is in the beginning? What was the big change besides being able to see?
Yeah, it always hits home for me because I always think back to when this was happening where I, to an extent, could see my fiance's face and then the progression where it was to light perception. And then all of a sudden, I could see, I can see her every day. I know exactly what she looks like, beauty and everything. That's the major thing for me. There are tons of other aspects of my life, but that is the major one.
Yeah. And interestingly, I'll just share with the audience that you were an advocate for people with disabilities, especially with visual disability. And so as a person yourself that was legally blind, I always was very impressed with the fact that you weren't completely self-serving about it. And I can remember an interview we did with a company that had a device that actually helped you see. And I was in my mind and even out loud advocating for you receiving this device. and you presented it to our audience, who many of whom have problems with sight, so that they would know that these options were there. And I just felt, because of your generosity in presenting this company and their technology to our audience, I felt that you deserved to have a device like that yourself. Now, that in itself must have been quite something, because I remember you used it for a while, and then it was taken away from you for a little while because it was extraordinarily expensive.
Yeah. So when I was going through some of my changes, I found a device on Facebook where it was electronic glasses that made you be able to digitally enhance your vision. What they will not do is change clarity. They will enhance your existing vision so that you can retain clarity if you have any. And at the time, it was just such a struggle because I knew that they existed. I knew that they were out there, but I couldn't buy them because they were astronomically expensive, as everyone who has been somewhat connected to AT or assistive technology knows that it's a very pretty penny even for the simplest of technologies. But for a while, I didn't think it was possible, so I created an account with them, got a little bit of information from them when I first heard about it, but then I was like, well, I don't know if I can do, I don't know if I can do this, or if I can create a campaign or raise this amount of money. So I left it for a while, and then I came back to it a little bit later, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try for it. I'm going to, create campaigns. I'm going to reach out to different people. I'm going to try different things, like artwork, T-shirts, whatever it is, seeing if I can raise money for it. And it got to a point where I got donations from many generous people, but it wasn't quite enough. So I reached out to State Services for the Blind, and I chatted with them about helping to get the piece of assistive technology, and they were able to assist in taking care of the device. At the time, there was a deal with the device because it was during the holidays where it was $3,000 less. And it's $3,000 less because they had an anonymous donor that was willing to pay $3,000 to bring the price down to just over $6,000. And we jumped on it. We got it taken care of. It came within a matter of, I think, give or take a month, maybe a little bit less than that. And it was extraordinary trying it out, different things. I still have it. I still use it when I need to because it's still an enhancement, which is awesome. And it was a difficult journey, because I had it for a while, but then my vision changed to a point again where it was to light perception. So I couldn't use the device, so I had it for a certain amount of time and then I lost it. It was both I had to recognize that, my time was there. And then, I ran out of time, but I was so thankful for every moment that I had. But that initial experience though, of getting the device made me extremely, feisty, stubborn, whatever you want to call it, where I was part of me, when I got up to the point where we had to do the surgery, I'm just part of me was this could make at least what time you have left better, or make it so that you have more time, even if it's in the limited quantities that you have. And so we took that risk, and it was a great risk. I don't know where I'd be today if I didn't take that risk. The risk, made it so it was possible to get job opportunities in the last little while, get my own place and things, do so many different projects. It could be very different,
Yeah, and just even everyday life. So tell me the differences, in your everyday life. I can't imagine what it's like to be completely without sight. So I imagine that in your everyday life, it's made a difference.
Oh, yeah. Major things have changed for me, cooking, cleaning, watching TV, doing some of the basic things, like walking in the park, or, with our complex, we have a sitting area, so we can go outside and look at all the trees or have a nice walk, or there's a pool by us, that we can utilize. So being able to see that and go into it and all these different things, it's really interesting experiences when you start, a kind of getting back to things. The really bizarre part of it was when you have this type of vision, you, like for myself, but also for other people, you'll notice that you haven't seen some people who have been with you the whole time for so long that you look at them and you're like, you have changed,
Was it like, wow, you got old? Is it like that?
Yeah.
Or wow,
yeah. But it was just interesting, and also I was thankful at the same time. The fun thing about this is that with all of my skills, if I wanted to, I can still read in the dark, so I can save on my electric bill.
Yes, that's a way to look at it.
I'm versed in, audiobooks and written books and things, so I can either choose to read something or listen to something. Same thing with like navigating websites and, using all sorts of other tools. I can choose what I feel like at that particular day. And it also helps with minimizing eye strain because I use computers a lot. Having the option to do both, it really greatly helps the processes.
So it's like you've put the ability in disability. It sounds like that through your disability, you've been able to engage in many things that demonstrate your abilities.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I've been thinking of ever since that I made that first breakthrough where I was making small art pieces and then went to large ones and started promoting my art and things. I'm sitting here and I'm like, why, why can't I do more? Why can't other people who are like me do more? We have the capability of doing so much and doing so many incredible things. It's just a matter of doing it. I mean, the interesting thing is there's a very interesting concept that I flip on its head in the sense of computers, but they use it in gaming. Like if you were to play a game of some kind, right? And let's say you had a puzzle in front of you and you had pieces put in that puzzle. And you're like, well, geez, I can't figure this out. It's difficult, it's hard, something like that. But every piece means something, and every piece means there is a possibility. And what I do is I take that and I flip it on its head for computers, because I use a lot of technology. I think, okay, there's this limitless landscape available to me. Why is it here? Because it can be. And then I think to myself, well, weirdly enough, how can I change the colors of things? How can I download things? How can I create art pieces or do different things? I like to manipulate and try and experiment. And I think that's ultimately what people should do because, it just comes to a point where it is very difficult to own your own disability or to understand that you have one, but it's a complete another to understand that, when you have it, you can do absolutely anything. It's just a matter of taking what's in front of you and utilizing it towards what you want. Because, if there's a will, there's a way. If you want something bad enough, you're going to go out and get it. And if not, then it's just not. And that's the reality of the world. If it's not important enough, you're not going to make the time for it or you're not going to make the effort. And if you want to, if you want to do some visual art or whatever it is, pick up a computer mouse or maybe some clay, you never know. Just go with it.
You didn't let the frustration of losing your sight deter from you finding something else or discovering other things about yourself with regard to your abilities. It's interesting because people meeting you, especially online or meeting you or hearing our show that we do together, would not imagine unless they're told. And we often talk about it on our show, but they would not know that you were blind because you seem to see things in other ways. Our first show, Cain versus Canine, I think that got people to thinking that they have to look beneath the surface on a situation.
Yeah.
What are your plans now that you have your eyesight? How's your life about to change? What has happened to you? We have a few minutes left. We have about 2 minutes, 3 minutes left to talk about that. And I think the audience would love to hear what your plans are and how your life has changed.
Yeah, my plans are continuing to grow the network. We reach over 700,000 people in 135 countries across 120 plus platforms and 3 radio stations. So I'd like to continue growing that, empowering and motivating and educating people. about many different topics, as well as visual impairment and blindness, as well as disabilities, as well as looking into opportunities for accessibility and development, and continuing going from there.
Yes, and it sounds like you've kind of found let's put it this, a specialty has found you, or probably a few specialties have found you. So, Peter, I would like to have you back on the show in the future to talk about your work with technology and accessibility, because I think that the general public is really not aware of how complex this world really is. And I think that the way you've decided to engage in it is thoroughly impressive. So I'll use your line. So where can the audience find you if they want to contact you?
One of the biggest places is Twitter. My Twitter handle is my first and last name all together, PeterElvidge. And so is my Facebook account is the same first name and last name, as well as YouTube has my first name and last name on it as well. So feel free to find me at where you would like to find me at, because I'm everywhere, but those are just a few places to find me.
Okay. And it's really definitely worth it. I really thank you so much for being on the show, Peter. I look forward to speaking to you again, which will probably be sooner rather than later. Please come back to the Energy Stoners Cafe so we can talk more about you, Perseverance Network, and all the fantastic things that you're doing. I thank you so much. And I thank the audience for coming to the show as usual. And you can contact me by emailing me at toniquesttv@gmail.com. And then also, like Peter, you can find me on Twitter. But you can find me a lot easier on LinkedIn.com. And you can also find me on Facebook. And visit the website, two websites that I have, EnergyStoners.com, and my other website is ScreamingWoman.com. And you can listen to more of Peter and I together on Seeing Beneath the Surface on YouTube. And we look forward to having you. And thanks, Pete.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to the Energy Stoners Cafe.
Thank you for listening to Passionate World Radio Network, a multimedia company. You can listen to this program all over again at PassionateWorldRadioNetwork.com, Facebook.com/PWRN, Twitter.com/PWRN, GooglePlus.com/PWRN. Distinguish yourself from the ordinary. And remember, please keep listening.